let's be clear about this. This means that they made prototypes, tested the prototypes, did not catch this mistake. LH240HV. LH240HV? 240? 21. There are 21 rows of pixels in the battery symbol on the DVR. The screen is 13.7 batteries tall times 21 pixels is 288. There's no way this is a 640 by 480 screen. Folks, we got to have a little talk before this review starts. I recorded a full review for these goggles 2 days ago, and you're going to see that review as if what I'm about to tell you didn't happen. Because what happened to me with these goggles isn't going to happen to all of you, but it's going to happen to some of you, and I don't want to take a chance that some of you don't watch to the end and miss out on this. I cannot figure out what's going on, but we are on race 3. Oh, it seems like it's thinking about getting it. It's trying hard. The screen is glitching out. This, even if I try and change channels, the yeah, oh, there, see, you can almost, yeah. Okay. And this is relevant because one of the points I make in the full review video is that when you buy a product like this from a vendor like Banggood, Alibaba, GearBest, you are taking a gamble with your money. And if you lose that gamble and you get a bad product, you are at best going to have a big hassle on your hands getting a replacement. And at worst, you're just out the money. If at the end of this review, you decide that the Topsky Prime 1S is the goggle for you, I strongly recommend buying it. If possible, buy it from a vendor that you know will have your back. If you're in the United States, you can often buy, I haven't checked, but you can often buy products like this from Race Day Quads, Get FPV, the Rotor Riot Store, Ready Made RC, Pyroflip, any of these vendors that you know will handle a return for you without making you go through China customer support. That's where you should buy this if you decide to buy this. So as we go into the review, and I make the point that on paper, the spec sheet for this goggle is very good. Let's not overlook that there are intangibles like post-sale support that also have to be considered that could make a goggle that looks worse on paper actually the best buy. The Topsky Prime 1S has a lot going for it. First of all, it's $90. So that's about as cheap as I think a beginner set of FPV goggles can possibly be. And if you look at my Ultimate FPV shopping list, you'll see I recommend as the cheapest worth having the EV800D, which comes in at about $100. But the big difference between the EV800D and the Topsky Prime 1S is that the 800D is a box goggle, meaning that you've basically just got one screen in front of your face and then you're looking at it. And that doesn't really work for, some people love them, but that doesn't really work for everybody. Many people prefer to have two small individual screens with lenses in front of them. One advantage of that is that the focal distance is further, which means that even though the screen is actually only centimeters from your eye, it actually feels to your eye like it's looking at something 6 feet away. And that reduces eye strain and just makes it all around more comfortable. The Prime 1S has two 640 by 480 screens.
No, it doesn't. That's a lie.
It's got a DVR. Great, DVR built in. It supports all the channels. The menus are relatively easy to navigate. It's got a separate band and channel button. You can easily flip between the bands and channels. I'll show you inside the screen in a minute and you can see for yourself. On the underside here, we've got IPD adjustment and it's got diopter measurements, which means if you have glasses, if you're nearsighted specifically, you can go all the way up to -8 diopter. The unit is powered, there we go. The unit is powered via a 2-cell LiPo right here, and it's labeled as 2000 milliamp hours. You charge the unit using this USB port here, and it's got a built-in charger, so basically just plug it in at night and the next morning it'll be fully charged and ready to go. So here's our first look inside the goggle, and I'm just going to use this joystick to adjust the menu, and you can see the menus are very easy to use. You can adjust brightness, contrast, color, etc. I will say one thing that bothered me is that if you want to adjust these things, you can't just click and hold. Nope. You have to click each individual time. So that's a little frustrating and frankly completely unnecessary. The DVR is accessed from here, and it is a pretty full-fledged DVR. It's not just the same DVR as the Fat Shark. It actually reminds me of the DVR in the Eachine EV800D, although I haven't put them side by side to confirm whether my memory's correct that they're exactly the same. But it's a very nice DVR with playlists and thumbnails, and it's nice and easy to use. Switching channels is no problem. We just press band to switch bands, L band, A band, B, E, and of course Fat Shark and Race band, and channel to switch channels. And it's a very nice touch that these buttons, one is flat and slightly recessed, one is raised and indented, so that when you've got the goggles on, you can easily feel and know whether you're changing channel or band. Also very nice that the on-screen display pops up and shows you what you're doing, so you don't have to take those goggles off to find the channel that you're looking for. In order to test the RF performance of the goggles, I set the quadcopter at 200 milliwatts. And I did that because that is the lowest output power that typically will let me fly behind my barn without too much breakup. At 25 milliwatts, it's a real struggle for me to stay in the air when I fly that line. So I figure, in lieu of more rigorous and time-consuming testing, this is a rough indicator of whether these goggles are on par with other ones I've tested. And here we go. It basically hung in there pretty good. So in terms of RF performance, I would say they are not much worse or much maybe better, I don't know, than anything else. On a cheap goggles like this, you kind of just want to answer the question, are they crap? And in terms of RF performance, I would say, no, they are not crap. Well, I need to measure the IPD of these goggles. I can't find it anywhere, so I'm pulling them apart, and I'll take you guys along for the ride as I do. So we've got these boards up on the top, which are connected to ribbon cables, and the boards are nicely screwed in. They don't just slip out. They're nicely secured. Very pleased to see that. Same thing here for the diopter adjustments. Really good. Yep, these are the gear teeth where the diopter adjusters are, engage with. Cool. The battery is in a nice plastic tray here, so it's nicely secured. Very good. It's not just sort of loose in there. Right here we've got a hand soldered enamel wire. I see this commonly on prototype boards that I get from manufacturers where there's a problem with the PCB, and rather than reprint the PCB, they just hand solder a wire on. It's very unusual to see this in a production unit. Not that unusual coming from China, I guess. Nice, this fabric tape here holding this on. There's nothing inherently bad about this. It's probably going to be fine forever, although maybe that's why my goggle is messed up. Hold on, let's see if this has come loose or something. No, it's secure. Here are the screens. And when you wonder why Fat Sharks are so much more expensive, this is why. These are massive screens compared to Fat Sharks. Smaller screens are much more difficult to make and much more expensive, especially at high quality. This ribbon cable is a freaking joke. It's so thin and papery. I've never seen anything like that before. Yep, we got another hand soldered jumper wire here. So again, some mistake that was made in manufacturing. And let's be clear about this. This means that they made prototypes, tested the prototypes, did not catch this mistake, then they went to production, and then after they went to production they discovered this mistake, and they had already produced too many of the units to just scrap them and start over. So they hand soldered this wire. And this is the part where I looked at the back of the screen and saw that it said 240 on it and guessed that these might actually be 320 by 240 panels. So as you saw in the intro, I counted the number of pixels in the battery symbol, used that as a guide for the size of the screen as a whole, and sure enough, I don't think there's any way this is a 640 by 480 panel. This is some fishy, straight bull stuff that Topsky tried to pull when they first announced these goggles. They said, oh, it's a 640 by 480, but they meant it's two 320 by 240 screens side by side, which is not how anyone ever in the history of the universe has measured screen resolution. Besides, then it would be 1280 by 480, not 640 by 40. They are trying to, you know what? I'm not going to claim what their motivations are in the interest of not exposing myself to liability. But when they say this is a 640 by 480 screen, they do not mean it in the way that anyone else in the world uses that term. These are 320 by 240 panels, and it is absolutely despicable that they're doing this, in my opinion. That's the Topsky Prime 1S. This is the Fat Shark Recon, and it also comes in at about $90. But on paper, it's missing a lot. It doesn't have diversity. It doesn't have a DVR built in. Joshua from the future here to tell you that I literally just found out today that the Recon 2 has been released with a DVR in it. Link in the video description. Yeah! And it doesn't have two separate screens. It's just, here, let's switch it on. It's just one screen in here. Now, it isn't quite as bad as that because the screen is actually like up top and there's a reflector and a lens, so it doesn't look like it's as close as you would think. It's a little bit better viewing experience than many box goggles, but $80, $90 for this versus that. I really wanted to be able to, when I pulled the Prime 1S out of the box, I was like, it feels pretty substantial. It seems reasonably well built. I haven't pulled it apart yet. I'm sure it's pretty cheaply made inside, but it's got some heft. It doesn't feel cheap or like a toy. It feels like a nice goggle. And the feature set is really impressive. But I flew with it. And I'm sorry, the screens are just so kind of muddy, and I had trouble seeing where I was going. And yeah, I adjusted the brightness and contrast. It just seems like Topsky have sourced a really, really low-end panel for these goggles. And it's very difficult to make out the details that you need to be able to make out when you're flying. I've always maintained that the most important thing about a set of FPV goggles is the image quality. And I don't mean image fidelity. We're not watching movies on these. Colors and stuff are nice, but what really matters is, can you freaking see where your freaking quadcopter is going so you can make your quadcopter go where you want it to go and not smash into a tree or a branch? And at any price, a goggle that doesn't let you see enough information to be able to fly is not worth having. On the other hand, a goggle like the Recon, which has fewer features, I have put both of these goggles on my face and I have flown with them, and I can tell you I'd take the Recon any day. As much as beginners to the hobby who are going to buy this goggle want to save money, it's important that they also get a good experience and not feel like this hobby is just about taking their money and then screwing them over. And although nobody from companies like Topsky or Elmway or even Eachine, I'm sorry to say, nobody from those companies sits down in the morning and says, I'm going to take people's money and screw them over. By not providing proper after-sales support, that is in essence what they're doing. And some of you are okay with that bargain. Many people buy these goggles and have a great experience, and many people will buy the Prime 1S and have an okay experience. It'll work until they're done with it, and then they'll use it as a spectator goggle or sell it to their friend. But some people are going to get this goggle and it's going to be broken, or it's going to break a month after you get it, and I don't have any confidence that you're going to be backed up. And that, for me, is why the final reason why I still feel like Fat Shark is the one to get. For those of you who are like, that guy, screw him, I don't want the Recon. Okay, no problem. Buy the Eachine EV800D. That's going to do it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Did I get it right? Or did I get it wrong? Tell me in the comments and I will listen. But don't accuse me of having forgotten about the little guy and only recommending expensive products like you did on my EV100 video, because I'm giving you two alternatives. The Fat Shark Recon and the EV800D at a similar price point that I think will give you a better flight experience than the Prime 1S. Topsky, keep trying. You're so close, Topsky. You made such a leap, and now the next one is going to be so good. Make this same goggle, but with like 2 tiers better screens, with actual, like, just not muddiness that you can't make out details, and it'll be a good goggle. And if it's $130, maybe $140, you're going to have a great product on your hand. But this one, There you go. I'm all right. That's like the third time I've recorded an outro. Let me get out of here. Happy flying.